Hello there, my name is Lanius and today I want to talk about text editor. So, another a bit nerdy video, but this time it's not actually very specific to Linux, but of course many Linux users prefer doing stuff in console, in the terminal, so they do a lot of configuration and stuff in text files. So, but also we'll be talking from a perspective of a programmer. So I guess my text editor journey, if you will, I believe I started with Geany. Geany is kind of IDE. I mean, it has some integrations that would really help with programming. And as far as I remember, it was working really well. But I think even then, when I was kind of a noob at doing, programming work, at some point, at least for a moment, I switched to Vim, but it wasn't really working that well for me because, it was more like a, ooh, I'm Linux user. Ooh, I was using Slackware, I guess, at that moment, so it led me straight to Vim and it wasn't working for me, but move a little further in the future. So the moment I started some real programming work, I started using PHPStorm. So it's one of the IntelliJ IDEs, which are really good. They have a bunch of them. Everyone is kind of dedicated to given programming language or a set of programming languages, because PHPStorm doesn't only do PHP, it also does work well for HTML, for JavaScript, right out of the box. I guess you can install some plugins for other languages, but that's it. There's also, I believe, WebStorm, which is, I don't really know how it's different from PHPStorm. I guess it's more JavaScript and HTML, CSS, CSS centric. PyCharm, there's RubyMine. Anyway, so PHPStorm was working quite well for me. Sometimes it was getting a little slow, but I guess it's true for all IDEs because they're really big programs. They do a lot, processing. But I mean, if you have a project, you usually have a bunch of files with, code in it. And what IDE does, it kind of parses this stuff and it gives you some auto completions. It allows you to move through the code like you have some function or some class, so you can just jump to a definition of it, and it's kind of standard. And I'm not really sure when VS Code came out with its LSP, language server protocol, I guess, but I'm not sure if PHPStorm didn't have it first their way, but I don't know. Yes, PHPStorm. Why did I wanted to switch away from it? I mean, it was kind of heavy, sometimes slow, had some good features, really good file search, also really good extracting code into separate functions or even classes, if I'm not mistaken. But it had some problems. Also, I wanted kind of to move to something open source because PHPStorm is closed source, but it's really good application, and I kind of recommend it maybe, but you know, it's also a paid application. You might want to start with something free, like Geany, I guess, is quite nice, or VSCodium. But so at some point I decided I want to try something new, because I was using PHPStorm for work. I was using it with some Vim mode plugin, so basically had all the Vim functions inside of PHPStorm. I mean, modal editing, so normal mode, insert mode, and all that stuff. But I came down Emacs rabbit hole, of course, because of DistroTube, and well, I started testing Doom Emacs, doing all of my configuration stuff. I mean, in my free time, not really the work. And I was looking around if it would work for me. And at some point I decided that it would work. And at some point I switched to Doom Emacs like full time. And I was kind of enjoying my time with it. But that Emacs had some problems, for me at least. Maybe I didn't know how to do it, which is very, very likely, because I guess getting to really know Emacs, it takes some time, and I was using it for like 2 months, I guess. And I wasn't really that much going out of the scope of Doom Emacs, so they have some supported plugins, modules you can enable, disable, and I wasn't really going much outside of it. And yeah, but it seemed like it had everything. The file search, we couldn't really find any nice way of searching through files. It was the biggest thing that actually bothered me in Emacs, because I had this really nice file search in PHPStorm before, and in Emacs, I mean, it had all the IDE like functions, so navigation through code, like you click some function or some class, I guess control click, and it taking you to the definition of it. So that wasn't a problem. Another problem is that I generally work like I have my project locally, but the code is synchronized with a server where I actually test what I'm doing, and I need this to work at all times. And okay, it worked in Emacs, kind of, because I found out when I open a project, everything loads up, and then the synchronization works. Another thing was that while loading a project, it was indexing files because it had the language server support, and it took ages. I mean, I could just disable it, and I guess I finally ended up doing it because it didn't really affect like the auto completion, I guess. But basically the program was frozen for like 60 seconds or a minute, which was as I think now even worse than PHPStorm, I guess, because you could use the program when it was indexing, but you wouldn't get much IDE things before it already indexed the whole project. And okay, Emacs was quicker than PHPStorm, but still not really good. Also, another thing is that and Emacs takes a while to start up. So how you want to use Emacs is have a server or daemon running in the background. So what you really do is open a client. So it opens instantly and it's quite okay. But started to feel like a lot of hassle to use a text editor at some point, but these all are little things. I mean, maybe not really. Okay, I was talking about the file sync. So if I had multiple projects opened, the file sync worked only for the first one I did open. For the other ones, no luck. And what I had to do to make it work, I had to kill the Emacs daemon, restart it, and then it worked. The first project I loaded, and it was not really nice experience because I keep switching between projects quite often. But still, it wasn't the moment I decided Emacs is not for me. At some point, because the projects I was working on, basically all the projects I'm working on, are quite huge, a lot of files, and I guess it was caching it, and for some reason, I mean, I get it just from the Doom Emacs kind of itself, because it has a tool to check your installation, and it warns you when the cache for project tile is a project plugin is too big, because it can make Emacs unstable. So guess what? It started to just die for no particular reason. So I will have to restart it, wait a while when everything is indexing, and yeah. Also, I never had tabs working in Doom Emacs. I don't know why, because it's kind of supported, but I just get used to navigating through buffers, which kind of a thing I later was kind of lacking for me. But so the fact it started just dying randomly, okay, no, I'm not going to stick with it. Maybe I could, build it from the ground up and make it work just like I want, but it seemed like a lot of hassle, and I wasn't really that much into Emacs to know how to really do it, which I was, quite more comfortable with doing it in Vim, and I actually started, messing with Vim. At some point I thought maybe I could switch, but I was thinking that, okay, I need IDE, so PHPStorm's IDE, Emacs is so big and powerful, so it kind of is IDE, can be IDE as well. And it actually worked like IDE for me. But Vim is kind of text editor with a lot of stuff, right? But it couldn't be an IDE, like full-fledged IDE. At least I thought that. So I switched to VSCodium, which was kind of okay. It had all the, let's say, IDE features. It had some nice file search, but I guess not really that nice as PHPStorm had. And I kind of enjoyed my time in it. Also, I was really enjoying the fact that it had a plugin which actually had a Vim instance, NeoVim instance running as a editor for the IDE. But at some moment it just decided it will stop working. And it stopped working, and ended up switching to some Vim mode plugin, which was kind of okay, but it was still not really the experience I wanted. Okay, also for Emacs. As you can tell now, I was really into Vim style of editing. So I of course used Doom Emacs with so-called evil mode, which is kind of Vim emulation mode. But the problem is this the evil mode is very close to Vim, but it's not exactly like Vim. So I would be kind of expecting some kind of behavior, but it wouldn't work like this. Like if you highlight text in Vim, it automatically goes to visual mode where you can use a key binding, copy the text, paste or whatever. In Doom Emacs, it didn't do it. So I sometimes forgot to go to the normal mode from insert mode. I would highlight a bunch of text, hit the key binding, and what happened was all the text was replaced with one letter I just pressed. So, and another thing was that undo in Emacs worked for me quite weirdly, because usually if you undo, you want to undo the last change, but for some reason Emacs was undoing like more than that, and it was infuriating. So in VS Code, I mean, there's some weird thing with tabs also. I mean, the tabs work of course, but like not always. I mean, sometimes the tabs would just disappear, and I was kind of used to the buffers in Emacs, so I was getting a lot of tabs and they sometimes went away and didn't really have I would need to find the file and open it again, which was kind of irritating, but it wasn't the reason I actually switched from VS Codium. I was still trying to make something of Vim, more like fun, I guess, to see what can I do with Vim. So I was looking at some Vim distributions, some like Doom Emacs or Emacs, but for some reason every freaking distribution or whatever you can call it, they always make some non-standard way of installing plugins, of configuring the editor. And why are you doing this? It just makes it more complicated. And usually if you want to install some plugin or something, there's some instructions to follow. Usually they don't give you instructions how to install, I don't know, some plugin in Astro Vim or whatever, but in the regular Vim. And it's kind of like these distributions don't really expect you to install additional plugins, but just to go what they gave you, I think. Or I'm just not really know Lua that well to just be comfortable with it. But anyway, I was trying NV chat for a moment, and while it is nice, quite minimal, but it still had the same thing with this weird approach to configuring the editor, and I don't really liked it. And at some point I decided to mess with Vim my way, so I copied some configuration, some key bindings, also some plugins from the default NV chat, but I put it in just regular NeoVim, the regular way, without making it too complex. And I was trying some stuff, adding more stuff to my I guess my version of Vim and configuration. And at some point I didn't really plan to switch to Vim, but I was doing something in VS Code and I wanted to just check something in another project, so I opened Vim and I just kind of started using it, and it kind of stayed that way. And the funny thing is that just before I decided to make this video, I wanted to say that the searching in files is also not really good in Vim. But it turned out I was using a telescope, a plugin, wrong the whole time. So let me show you something. Open Vim. Here I can open a project. Let's go with Backstyle. So I can pick a file. Let's do, I don't know. So that's kind of nice, but I opened not what I wanted. But anyway, the thing is I want to show you how file search works here. And now I can just search and it gives me the results instantly. It's better than even the PHPStorm search, and also it has all the IDE functions. It has file sync, which I thought it wouldn't work because it was some ancient Vim plugin, but it works, just works. Of course, I was adding some stuff while using it to make it better, like, you know, some key bindings for the telescope functions I didn't know about, and I really enjoy my time with Vim. Really, really good, but I guess you need to put in some, you know, work or research before you can really make it this way for your work, especially because, you know, if you're just using it to mess with your configurations and system, that's not really an important thing. But you don't really want your editor to slow you down when you're working. And actually, the part of the reason I switched from Emacs was that it actually did slow me down at some point. I mean, as for the maybe some problems I talked about in Emacs, so in Vim there is no problems with it. Oh, what did I do? With it acting weirdly in Vim mode, because, you know, it's Vim. And I'm not really sure if I had a problem with the language server not really initializing correctly if I opened two projects in one window, but guess what? I can just open another window and it opens instantly. I don't have to wait a minute or run a server in the background for it to work just like this. So also here I don't have a feeling that I'm missing out on something because Emacs is so big and I didn't really use much of it. A lot of people say this, but it really wasn't that big reason. But you know, I actually wanted to have a text editor I can use for some basic stuff like configuration, but also for doing my work. I've chosen Emacs kind of because of this too, because it works kind of like Vim, but it also has all these functionalities. But in the end, it seems that Vim also have all those functionalities if you want. You can even have org mode in Vim, which I use. So that would be it for this video. So you had a rare chance of seeing me in the sunlight, and that will be it. Yes, so thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye. Point I went down the Emacs rabbit hole. What did I hit?